Good morning, Shlomo.
Good morning.
So I understand that you're waiting to greet Mashiach through this mimer.
I should.
That you, after this mimer, you will have all the tools to help to greet Mashiach.
What about you?
I hope so. Also, I'm running far behind. I'm trying to catch up.
No.
But I enjoyed your review, your kitzur of yesterday's shir.
The reason I said it is because I lately realized that we're giving a shir and we're stopping in the middle, but the next day we don't continue where we were holding yesterday. I don't mean to say insight in the mimer, but I mean to say he's in the middle of discussing something, and we start tomorrow something, completely different, and it has to be a continuation. No, I mean, let's say you listen to the tapes. Should it be a series? Where you go one step, the other step, but you're going one step, and then the other day is like talking, forgot about everything about yesterday. It's completely new. It's nice while in the shir, but I think would help why shouldn't it be this way?
Okay, look, I follow what you say, and that there's things. I guess there's things that come to mind for Rabbi Paltiel that he wants to explore. It's and then he will tie it all together. In other words, there's topics, I guess, that he feels we need to know. Not all of them go in the sequence, even not, as you point out, not even according to the discussion. Let's not even bring in the mimer, but let's say even just in the discussion, that I can see for the Tov. That's how I presume that this thing is developing when a new inyan is brought, and it doesn't have to do with yesterday's discussion. This is something else that he wants us to know about, and then I presume he'll bring it all together. I have a small head to understand what's going on, but maybe that's it.
Let me tell you something. The Rebbe said once by Verbringen, and I don't know exactly I think it's like maybe the Rebbe asked me if he understood the Verbringen. So he said he didn't understand. So the Rebbe told him, and nobody understands everything, and everyone understands something.
Everyone understands what? I didn't hear what you said. Everyone understands?
Something.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's what the Rebbe said. And this is how I go to the shir also. I don't understand everything, but I know I understand something. And it means everyone. So you don't have to look where you don't understand. You have to look where you do understand. You understand, I have with you a conversation, and we stopped because it's 8 o'clock. We have to stop talking, and we want to continue. And tomorrow, we don't continue, and as if we didn't say anything yesterday. Wouldn't it be nuts?
I probably Shlomo.
I'm not saying about going inside in the cipher line after line, because let's say he wants to stay on this line for the next 20 years. I don't have no problem with that. Right. But he discussed something and he stopped in the middle, and tomorrow he doesn't go back where he was discussing yesterday. like asking where are we up to, and we're looking for something, and we start as if, and sometimes questions were brought out, and we could wait. You should go on that thing. And no, completely.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
He's from the Bechina, from the aspect of their makif. So I kind of promise that we will discuss the expression Yodua. What do you mean by Yodua? Yodua means it's known. How is it known before it is being explained and presented? And then yet we say it's Yodua, it's known. And what is known? That the Kalim, the source of Kalim, is from the Bechina of Ir Makif. And yet, Bechina, Ir Makif, Bechina means an intangible part of the aspect of Ir Makif. What do we know about the Bechina of Ir Makif? And yet we say, Yodua, it is, no, it doesn't even need to be exposed. So, since we focused on that, we have to somehow bring this out. And we'll try our best. The principle to get down or up to these inferences that have no exposition or words, it's just no. There's a principle that we need to recognize. Our awareness, at least awareness of the identifiable aspect that we are exposed to, begins from, physically speaking, from sight. And the koyches hanefesh, it is chokhmah. So going down to sight, it's easier than chokhmah. Everybody experiences sight. It may be argued that when we see something, that sight itself is what tells us about the existence of this something. Pardon me. If we think into this a little bit more personally, and try to identify what we see from our internal, personal sense of reality. We will see, you will recognize that sight is not the beginning of this knowledge. In fact, it is more correct to say sight is only alerting us to that which we already know at a much higher and truer level. I always remember this expression I once had, or many times had, occasion to experience. When we discuss something and many questions, and that the participants have difficulty in relating to what is being explained. And then, as we go on in our discussion, we come to a conclusion, something that really exposes it, clarifies it. When that occurs, you have an interesting reaction. Those people who were debating you vehemently for all that time, all of a sudden come around and say, oh, of course, I always knew that. Oh, that's what you mean? Of course, oh, you always knew that. So what was the difficulty? Why were we debating so strongly when you always knew it? This, I always knew that, is revealing to us a very important aspect in our experience in life. It may appear to us that our experience of life, awareness, starts at the level of sight or chokhmah, some very fine quality in our experience. But when we come back and say, I always knew that, obviously we're referring to a knowledge that did not come through some kind of experience. What is this knowledge? This knowledge is of a quality that is not discovered. The reason it's not discovered is because it's impossible not to know it. This knowledge is a knowledge that comes along with being born, comes along with being created, with having a neshama. The neshama, even as it is given to us at infancy, is not a blank facilitated for learning. In our terminology today, it is a fully loaded spirit. That knows all there is to know. And then when we continue to learn, we are merely discovering that which is contained in this knowledge. Because of this fundamental truth, that this knowledge is knowledge of the truth as is known to the neshama at inception. This is why we are capable of learning and accepting and fully uniting with knowledge that we're discovering. Because in fact, this knowledge is a fundamental reality in our nefesh. Except that because we are functioning in the world, we have to re-identify, we define this knowledge at the worldly level. Worldly level means that we have, as we said many times, we see what we know and what we don't know. Whereas from the Neshama perspective, there is not that which we don't know. I want to discuss this even further. We live in the world that the Rebbe created. A human being, I'm using human being because this is something which we relate to, which we experience. It's the highest, the greatest creature, the greatest present in the world. A human being consists, as the Gemara says, 613 different parts. These 600 different parts interrelate with each other. They are somehow interconnected and they function in perfect unison. To focus in on this interconnection of all the different parts, all the different limbs, including our seichel and midas and so forth. We are totally at a loss to identify the koiches individually. Even seichel and midas, which we readily recognize that seichel gives birth to midas. But the relationship is so smooth and so perfect that we don't realize that one is the result of the other. Because in fact, the reason midas comes from seichel is not that the seichel aspect creates a midah. There's a divine truth in this relationship. It is not something that's being created on the worldly level. When the midah comes from the seichel, it's not like a discovery. Oh, we can have midas from seichel. It's perfectly suited. It's a smooth transition. It's like we already knew it. Like I said before, we can have a long debate and then turn around and say, oh, yeah, of course, I always knew it. This I always knew it is true regarding everything that we learn. So we say, for example, the Gemara Kal V'Chaiman makes sense. Rashab makes sense. It's not because we are discovering the Rashab it makes sense. It makes sense because we always knew. Kavachema, we always knew. How do we always know? Because we have a fundamental knowledge that the reality of the world is a divine creation. And therefore, everything that is true from a divine perspective is always known. What is this? This is so true that even the very table which we are sitting by, which we are touching with our hands.
Rabbi Paltiel, just a technical point, the voice became a little not as clear as before. It's not your voice, it's how it's being transmitted through the microphone. I don't know if it's only I recognize it or it's just so.
Maybe
because of noise. Yeah. Okay, there was some noise there. Maybe that will alleviate it. Okay. All right, this is not going to be long. Yeah.
I think everybody should mute their phone except for Rabbi Paltiel.
Right,
well,
but
I think this noise should be alleviated. Okay.
That's good too, but it's not that. It's something changed. Either did your phone touch the table? Is there something lying against the phone? Because
my husband was using the Bluetooth. Maybe it's not completely. Could it be that it's completely not off?
No, Bluetooth is not good.
no, the sound.
No,
The
he was
sound
using
is
it
muffled.
earlier.
I'm not using it anymore.
It's not on right now, or else
No,
we
it's
wouldn't.
not on.
Fine. So maybe move it.
Okay. Wait a second. So what am I here? Yeah.
You were talking about how the connection between Seichel and Midas is seamless. Seichel doesn't create Midas.
We don't feel that. It does, obviously. But.
Right. But inside the Maimon, it's on the words on the fourth line, Om, you do the Shir Shakirim.
Yes.
We have to have a pivot. Yeah. The Midas and the Seichel and Midas, this was a means to make us aware. Make us aware of something very, very sensitive and very important. And that is that the interconnection amongst the different things that we're aware of, such as Seichel and Midas, on a superficial level, it would seem, we may argue, that the Seichel argues out and creates a Midah. It makes sense for the Midah, and the Midah picks up at that point. This is not true. For were it true, if this were the means of interrelation between the koiches, there would be something artificial, something unreal in this relationship. It would be something that you can always be aware that something there's two separate things which we can be connected. Whereas in fact, the human being functions as a perfect unified entity. We do not at all experience a transition from Seichel to Midas. Or even further, from Midas into Machshava, Dibur, Maisa. What can be further out? And yet it is a perfect union, the Maisa to the Seichel that justifies it. How is this? Maisa is an external action. It has to be identified on an external level. What to do and how to do it. Seichel is that which identifies how things should be. Which means how they should be from a truth, a perfect perspective. And yet, we do not feel that there is an interconnection here between different aspects. The reason for this is that this interconnection is not really an interconnection amongst different pieces. It is merely revealing how all of this is true at a level.
All this is true, what?
At a higher level.
Ah.
At a higher level, when we have Emunah, which is the pinnacle of the neshama, the highest level in the neshama that we experience, and the awareness of the world, are not separate. The reason the world is real to us is because we believe that we recognize the divine presence in the world. The world is as much a miracle to us as any miracle. It exposes us to the divine presence as much as every miracle. This is the pshat what the Rebbe is saying. I'll first focus on the word Yodua. Omnum Yodua. I'll focus on the word Yodua, then go back to Omnum, and then continue further. The word Yodua means it is known.
Sorry, where are we?
We're on the fourth line, on the second, on the East Summer base on page Kub, Nunches. On the end of the fourth line in East Summer base. Okay?
Got it.
It is known. And as we ask the question, how is it known if we were not told? The answer is, it is known because we know what the truth is. This is not a knowledge that needs to be proven. It should be shown. It should be convincing. It is a knowledge that is true because this is how the Rebbe wants it. This is the divine truth in the world itself. This is why it is Yodua. Because the divine truth is not something that is discovered or discoverable. Divine truth is what makes everything real. We see the world. Wow, what a presence. We're not perplexed by it because it's a divine will that it should be. It's as if the world is true in and of itself. Because everything is encompassed in the divine truth. And therefore the world is true in and of itself. This is why it is your dua. It is known. The reason it is known is that our awareness of the world is not a discovered aspect from a worldly experience that we know that there is a world. Our awareness of the world is that we know the divine truth, the presence of the divine truth, the divine creation. Therefore, there's not a question whether it is there or not. There is no not being there. Although indeed it is a creation. But it's a creation at the divine level. Which means it's a creation that has a natural presence, a self-justification for being. This is the Pshat Yodua. Why is it Yodua? Because Omnam, because we are aware of the truth of existence. What is the truth of existence? I said before the other day, Omnam, the word Omnam is a derivative of the word Amunah. Amunah is not something that we acquire. Amunah is the fundamental knowledge of the reality. And how do we have fundamental knowledge of the reality? Because reality is a divine creation. Therefore, this cannot not be known. This is divine truth. This does not need to be discovered. It cannot be obliviated. And this is why the Omnam, this truth, this Amunah, is your dua. It brings forth that which is known without having to be discovered. And what is your dua? What is known? The Shoresh HaKelim, that the source of Kelim, Ho Mibchinas Ho'er Makiv. The source of Kelim is sourced in the Bechina of Ho'er Makiv. Dafka. Dafka means exclusively. You cannot have Kelim as a derivative of Ho'er Pnimi. Kelim can only come forth from the Makiv. So now, we are faced with the requirement of identifying the concept of Kelim, and then going to the Shoresh HaKelim, then going to the Makiv. We have to start in this order. Because what comes down to us is the kelim. When we reflect on kelim, we recognize that there's a shortage for kelim. When we recognize that there's a shortage in kelim, then we go up to the where that originates from. What is the meaning of kelim? So I just have to warn everyone, this is not a simple process, and it's not a quick process. What is the meaning of kelim? The word kelim means receptacles. Receptacle means that it is made of a certain material, of a low-level material. And this low-level material can contain and bring forth to the person a finer quality of a being, of an entity. So the person can benefit from this finer quality. Such as, for example, a cup brings water to the person's mouth. The cup is the keli via which a person can drink water. Now, water is not meant to be in keli. Water does not get created in a keli. Water is a reality in the world. As it says in the Pasuk, water covered the entire world, the entire reality, the earth, and so forth. And then it was separated water from the dry land and so forth. But water is a reality, part of the reality of the world. We get water from the fountains from underneath the earth, but water per se is a creation as real as earth itself. In order to correlate these two realities in the world, dry land and water, we needed keli to bring water onto the dry land so that you can benefit from the water while you are on the dry land. It has to go through a keli. What is the keli? The keli is an imitation from that which concerns the world, the water on the worldly level. And we replicate it on a small scale within our own experience. We replicate this keli that is in the world as an open container. We limit it and we replicate this container on a smaller scale so that we can bring it down to our dry land presence experience. So the keli, the cup, is a replication of the overall container of the world. What is the basis of this cup? The basis of the cup is the bigger reality that water can be contained. Because water can be contained, then we can replicate that truth on a smaller scale. What makes water containable? This is what occurred in the beginning of creation. Water was covering the entire globe, the entire world. Then the Rebbe said he separated the waters from the dry land. And therefore, water now is a containable entity. Even though in itself it is something which flows freely. The fact that water became a containable entity is putting a perspective onto the entire existence of the world. And what is the perspective? The perspective is that everything that exists in the world, dry land and water and air and all that, it all combines to present a full and rich world, functioning world. This functioning world does not limit the individual parts. It brings out the full function of each individual part. The dry land is dry land, the air is air, the water is water, in the full sense of the word. And each one is contributing its fullest enrichment to the world without nullifying everything else. On the contrary, each one is complementing the other. This in that such very different qualities in the world can combine together to the point where they complement one another. This is due to the spirit, the highest spirit in the world. It's called the AYIN. What is the world about? It is not about water, it's not about earth, it's not about air, it's not about the sky, it's not about anything. It's about the divine creation. Which is the Pshat Makif. What is it about? What is the Rebbe? Where is the Rebbe in this creation? Recognizing that the creation is representing the Rebbe's will, then everything begins to make sense. There could be such disparate creatures like water and earth, and they combine perfectly as like one entity. This is what the Rebbe says. Again, I'm repeating the words on the fourth line. Om nom yodua, however, in truth it is known. This is where the word truth comes in. Because this is a different perspective of the world. Perspective of the world in terms of its truth. Its truth is the divine will that expressed through it. Yodua, it is known, the Sheirish HaKelim, that the source and the origin of the concept of Koilim is Mepchinas Hoyer Makif Dafke. It's from the Bechina, from the aspect of Makif, of the higher and overall truth in the creation. This overall truth of the creation is representing the divine will in the creation. It's a divine presence in the creation. This is the Makif.
Time check. Maybe it's 11 minutes to 9 o'clock.
All right. This is a good interruption because yes, indeed, you finish a certain point.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can I? Okay.
Now, I'm not going to have something. It was very helpful today that it felt it was a continuation from yesterday. I have a question. Does Paltiel think it's productive that the Shia should go like in a continuation, like as a hemshech?
I really don't know what you're referring to. It's always a hemshech. And we always reintroduce and we always start from a certain point of what we discussed before. But however you want it.
Yeah, but there's a certain, there's a lot of levels in a hemshech, but we discussed today, it was explained, I think quite well. We need to listen to the tape again on the phenomenon of kailem itself. How a kaile, the most of a kaile, like to say, I don't know how to say it. So,
let me explain why was kailem discussed. This is the first time that word kalim is encountered.
Okay,
we didn't talk about kalim before. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to make to see if we can make something. And what's next? We discussed kalim, or the Paltiel think it's still necessary to continue on that.
Before we go to what's next, can we just talk? Can we just have little discussion on this shear right now?
No. Just want to try to establish for tomorrow where to begin. If maybe that's possible, then we'll go back.
Maybe that should be the end of the 10 minutes.
Because of the end, we forgot where we left. Now we remember where we left.
So we're taking away the question.
Right.
Got it.
All right. Should I react to this? I think I have to react to this. It'll take a half a minute. We speak with words. Words come from thought. Thought comes from Seichel. Seichel comes from the Neshama. But we are attempting in this whole process of learning is not to have clarity of words or clarity of thought. What we are trying to do is to reach to the point where we relate to it on our Seichel level. Seichel, this is Neshama. There is no, please understand this, there's a clear demarcation between speech and thought. And in speech, every word is a separate entity. But there is no demarcation that separates between Seichel and Midas, even though they're very different levels. Both are representative of the living Neshama. The reason we understand things is because we are living Neshama. The reason it translates Midas is because we're living Neshama. This is not a functional aspect. This is the reality of life itself. So since we're talking about on the Neshama level, ultimately, therefore, to put things in boxes, this is Seichel, this is Midas, this is Machshava Dibra Maisa, is virtually impossible. We can understand conceptually, but not to separate them into separate entities, to separate, like one is not connecting to the other. Like a cup and water. It's not possible.
It's not, one more time, it's not possible. It's not possible to separate the cup and the water.
No, cup and water, you separate them because they're completely, that's what I'm saying. You cannot separate Machshava, Dibra, Maisa. Or Midas and Seichel, the way you separate water from a cup.
Okay, so just to look at what we said today, that is, Kalim are from or Makiv.
Are rooted, Shoylash, not, they're rooted in Or Makiv, yes.
Yeah, and that is,
go ahead.
Is there a simple one sentence way to understand that? Because, I mean, the whole shir was about that. At first glance, the Kalim seem to be the opposite of Or. But really, you did illustrate the world and the water, and that the cup is a small replica, and hence it's rooted in the makif. Would that be a okay summary?
Every word in what you said needs a little bit attention. The oil. What is the oil aspect in the water in the cup? Water in the cup is a physical structure. What is the oil aspect? The oil aspect in this very simple structure is that despite the fact that the water is in a cup and it has to come to the human being, three different entities, there is some kind of a union among these three entities. And this union is such that the water is meant to be in the cup, and the cup is meant to bring the water to the human being. There's some kind of an intrinsic interrelationship.
Okay, that's okay. So there is that overall unity that allows for and joins them in a common purpose.
That's right, in a common reality.
Okay, and hence the keli remains or, and the or has within it the origin of keli, and it's all one fabric.
One oil, one concept.
One reality, yeah. One creation.
Right.
Okay.
When we take a water in a cup, we don't feel like we're taking water in a strange manner.
Right. Okay, I've got other topics, but I'm sure there are other people who wanted to jump in. If not, I'll come back.
All right. Jump in.
First, it was said that on cycle, we always understood it. Even we didn't know it only after we had a debate. But after we got to know it, we say we always knew it. And today was said that the same thing is a midas. Does it mean like to say after the cycle is magala or moila the midas, we feel we always had it in us. We always felt so. Is this correct? This is what meant.
That is absolutely correct. And let me give you just one nakuda that will show it, that will reveal it. You love your fellow like you, and other eat like yourself. They're two separate entities. One is the spirit behind that in fact they're all one entity. They will come from the same source. They have one neshama. Even though they're separate entities.
I have another question, but I'll wait till later. I don't want to take up the whole time.
Don't worry about it. Okay, next.
You said to Shlomo Yonason about the water in the keli, and you talked in terms of ore. Is it how does the ore relate to the water in the keli?
How come I don't see you? I don't know what.
Okay, one second. Okay.
Okay. How is water in the keli represent an or aspect?
Yes.
Is that what the question is?
Yes.
All right. I'll try to be as brief as possible, even though it can have a broad elaboration. You could say that the reason we take water in a cup is because that is the easiest way to bring water to our mouth. It's a practical requirement. Short of us jumping into the lake, if we want to be ourselves where we are, we have to bring the water to our mouth. In other words, it is simply a practical requirement. The cup is an invention that came to be after the fact that we are on dry land and we need water. But then, if we go a little bit further into this and further understanding the creation that Rebbe created, Rebbe created the earth and the sun and the sky and everything on earth. and unknowingly put the human being. And the human being needs the use of the various things on earth. From that perspective, the human being is very short on his own. He needs in the earth and on earth the world to give him support. So he is, so to speak, at the bottom of the totem pole. And all the things in the world there are what enables his being. But then we have to look at it from the divine perspective. Why all the other things were they created? What's the point of water and earth and sky? The point of all these creations is to enable a human being to exist and function on earth, in the world. The human being, this is the pinnacle of creation. In a very brief, the human being is the one who brings God into the world. He can identify the godly presence in the world. He illuminates the world with the godly spirit. That's what the creation is all about. So the cup and the water that comes to the human being is actually subservient to the human being. It is made to give support to the human being, not the other way around. Because the whole creation was to reveal godliness on the worldly level. And that occurs, that is accomplished by the human being functioning in the world. All right.
Okay, I want to just say that when you explained your dua, I don't know, am I on voice? Can anybody hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, when you explain your dua, it actually established the ease and the natural being of a human being in the world. That he's quite at ease and quite, the world is a comfortable place for him. It's his place.
Right. Okay.
Now, I just wanted to point out that for me, the explanation of your dua established that.
Okay. If somebody else wants to, otherwise I've got a different related topic.
I have just one quick thing. What we said about the world providing, the divine reality providing for the water and the kli. If we're saying the water is like the and the container is like the kli.
No, wait a second. That's not what we said.
Okay,
what you said was the water in keli represents oir.
Well, we said that the water contains the world contains water by definition. It contains
1 second. No. What we said is that the human being, this is what the creation is about. This is what the oil of the world. The human being needs water. And the water to human being has to come through a keli. Therefore, the keli, the water in the keli, this is oil. This is part of what the human being is. This is part of what the world is made of. That the world should be able to be used by the human being. This is part of the oil in the world. It's not a later discovery. It is meant to be utilized by the human being without losing his human status. Now it's remaining self-respecting, but at the same time partaking of water. In order to remain self-respecting, partaking of water, the water has to come to him in a keli.
I'm wondering why we were mentioning how the world contains water before it's in a kli. How that was an explanation of the sheirish of the kli coming from the makif.
The union that the sheirish of the keli is from the makif is not in the world by itself without the human being there. The reason that there is water and there's kalim and all that is because ultimately the world, the center of creation of the world is a human being. For the human being to partake of all the goodies in the world, it has to come to him in a proper way through kalim. Therefore, the kalim are the fundamental reality in the world, because the reality in the world is meant for the human being to be able to partake of it. So that when a human being drinks water from a cup, it is not an oddity. He's in the world and he's drinking water in a cup. No, that's how the world was created.
What does it mean? That's how the world was created?
It means that from its inception, this is what this is how it is presented in reality.
It has nothing to do with the physical structure of the world. It has to do with the concept only?
That's right.
Okay.
The world is a concept. It's a divine concept.
I have a quick question. We've been talking extensively about the water in the cup, but I couldn't help thinking of the next step, which is the water going into the human being, which means the human being drinking and satisfying his thirst. How do we relate this to the idea of Keli and Makif?
Okay, if you wish. You're entitled. As we said many times, I quoted the Posik. Hashem says, I made the earth, and the Adam I created on top of this earth. This thing that I created Adam on top of this earth means that Adam can function on the earth independently of everything else. He can walk around and do his thing on earth. He doesn't, without floating through water, without floating into the air, but just being on earth, he can fulfill his mission. But the human being needs air, and the human being needs water, and whatever else that enables his functionality. So how does a human being really function? The answer is, human being can contain air and water in himself. This is what happens when he drinks. Now he has the water that he needs for himself. Doesn't have to be in a basin of water. And he also has lungs. He can carry air in a certain degree. And this is how you can function as a human being, independent of anything else. I want to point out an interesting thing, which I was impressed by a long time ago. We all need air. And the air surrounds us all around. But ultimately, we need air in our lungs. This is where the air comes in, and it provides for the oxygen into our blood and so forth. So therefore, we have to breathe in the air. Therefore, since we have to breathe in the air, we should be preoccupied in the process of getting the air into ourselves. And air into ourselves is a necessity, a constant necessity. Therefore, we'll be constantly busy drawing air into our lungs.
Yeah, but breathing is automatic.
Excuse me?
Breathing is automatic. We not.
How is breathing automatic? It's breathing, you have to take it in and out.
Air comes in and out without us being aware of it.
Okay, how come?
That's the way Hashem made us.
That's right. How does it translate, physically speaking? This is something which hit me many years ago. The air around us goes up all the way up to 400 miles up. And therefore, there is air pressure. 400 miles of air pressure around us. This air pressure forces the air into our lungs anytime that our lungs are open and available. We're not even aware of it. It is the air that finds its way into our lungs, because the air pressure pushes the air into our lungs. This is an interesting phenomenon. It's a physical thing, but within the physical world, it is giving the human being full freedom. The physical world is sustaining the human being in his limited fashion, of bringing in and out. It's a phenomenal thing.
It's a great thing. It almost takes man out of Bruim Shabayabasha and puts them back into Bruim Shabayam, namely so united with a life-giving source.
That's right. That's right. That's why he is not ever at a loss. Where is my next breath going to come from?
Right.
In regards, yeah.
Did you want to go?
Yeah. In regards to what we spoke about the continuity of the shear, I didn't get it. For me personally, I don't mind staying on one line for the next, I don't know, but my goal is not to move, rather, but what I feel is there is something like in Yiddish we call it a Vorsetzung, a hemshech. So what a hemshech means being put in a box.
What are you saying? What are you asking? What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that when we leave a shir, we are in the middle of a topic, and what I would prefer that to continue the next day where we're holding, to resume.
Okay.
That's all. And so it's a 24 hours. So we forget what we were holding yesterday. I'm trying to ask how we can do something. We should be able to continue to where we were left off yesterday.
It's very simple. We just have to mention where we were yesterday, and Rabbi Paltiel will continue on what we are telling.
Right. This we're not talking about the text. We're talking about what we spoke. In one line, we could speak on 50 subjects. The line is not going to help us to continue where we are in the middle of a discussion.
Our mentioning could be the text and could be the topic also, and Rabbi Paltiel will choose.
The text doesn't help in this matter. Like for instance today, you're going to mention the text. That's not going to help continuing where we were holding in the middle of discussing. There's Shoirish, there's Kailam, there's Udam Katman, there's Ormakav, and this line we could stay for the next, there's so much to discuss and so much things going on.
I have a suggestion that at the start of the shir, Reb Shlomo Banda will introduce where we're starting and how that is a continuation from before.
Great. I second that emotion. Can I ask something?
Then I'll have to review and remember good to share. Okay, I'll try my best.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do we have to stop, or can I say a topic? So
You can say whatever you sure. Right now it's a free-for-all.
Thank you. That's the best kind. Anyway, we had inside the shir the comment, oh yes, I always knew that. So it does seem like there are two kinds of knowledge. One is, call it maybe a foundation, I always knew that. But there does seem to be true knowledge that is discovery. Maybe it's more chitzoni, but it seems also to impact quite deeply, whether it's to do with human relations or other topics that are quite pnimi. So would that be fair to think that there are actually two kind of bodies of knowledge, all from one source? Maybe we just go and say it's Shem Havaya, Shem Elokim, but that there's two kind of modes.
Right. When we say, to use an extremely simple low-down illustration, that 2 times 2 equals to 4. Now 2 times 2 equals to 4. It does not create the 4. It does not create the truth of the 4.
Yep.
Which means that the fact that 2 times 2 equals to 4 is true precedes our awareness that the 4 can be divided into 2 twos.
Yep.
What then is the value of identifying 2 times 2 if you know the 4 already?
You're saying, wait, you don't know it already. You're saying it's true in the world. Or are you saying you know the times table already?
Well, you say, what is the significance of learning the table, whatever it is, whatever is the means of knowledge? What is the purpose of knowledge if the truth is there before you know it?
I don't know if I was asking that. I was asking, is it fair to say there are 2 types of knowledge? Is that okay to summarize the world of what we call knowledge as 2 types? One is, I always knew it, and one is, oh, I discovered that.
Right. Yes, this is true. Now, what are we preoccupied with? We are preoccupied with that I always knew it, or what I'm discovering.
Yeah, that depends on the person, I think, but
we are preoccupied in correlating the discovered part of Seichel to the I always knew it part of Seichel.
Okay, very good. So this is like the ongoing conversation between Nefesh Bahamas and Nefesh Elokis, yeah?
You can put it that way if you want.
Okay. To
Now,
correlate.
ultimately, when I say, I understand, you've proven it to me, it's one thing. But I understand, I mean, I understand that which I always knew. I can see how this touches the fundamental reality that I know. And I understand.
Oh, that's the moment of union there.
That's right.
Or when they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, they were calling for that inner point of knowledge.
That's right. That's why it goes back to creation.
Okay, and we obviously do say that all knowledge, all nations, all specifics do and will eventually correlate perfectly with I always knew that.
That's correct. You take a cup of water, you put it on the table. It stands there for the reason that I always knew it would stand there.
Right, that's very simple and easy to assert, but we're saying more fully that a person's every move and experience in life will eventually be unified with some kind of inner resolution of, oh, I knew that, or that's why it had to be that way, or now I see why it came this route.
That's right. This is where Seichel comes in. The principle of Seichel is to reveal the neshama truth on the worldly level.
One more time. Seichel is to what? Say it again.
To reveal the neshama truth, the inherent truth, how it is true in the world.
And yeah, and okay, and also to be receptive to worldly experience and correlate it back into the way it should be or the way it really is.
That's
okay.
Right.
Shlomo Yosef, call me when the shir is over.
I should call you? Okay, Blineder.
Okay, can I still ask something?
Sure.
Okay, was spoken at today that the neshama knows everything, and like was just said now, and the cycle is revealing it on the worldly level, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, when we say the neshama knows everything, do we say that the neshama knows it on the worldly level also, or we saying that, like was said not just recently, that the neshama knows right and wrong, but it has to be exposed to the koiches to know what's true and what's wrong in the world.
Right. Right. The neshama does not know how things are in the world until it is exposed to the world. But the neshama is the final arbiter that says how it should be once you come to the world. Where is the godly element in this particular situation?
Okay. Okay, skoyach. Okay.
Related to this, it's okay to think, or it's true to say that in a certain way, your experiences in life are the raw materials of your knowledge.
I'm sorry, say again. That experience in life is what?
Your experiences in life are the building blocks or the raw material for your knowledge. So so, especially okay, Tom, you're busy with Talmud Torah, so that's very clear cut. But life is happening to you. You go for a walk. You bump into somebody. You have a childhood over there. You grew up in a hut chopping wood with your father every day. These experiences, we can say, are the basis for, are like the raw material of knowledge. Would that be accurate?
All right. It is accurate, except you have to add another principle into it. When you go out chopping wood with your father, you know how to chop wood, and your father chops wood. But also, that impresses you with a phenomenon that going out and chopping wood is part of life. Not just I did it with my father, but it's part of life. That which you experience with your father